This is Dead Male Tales. Let us know how we're doing by liking the video, subscribing to our channel, click the bell icon if you want to be notified when we find another letter. On with the story. My dearest Samantha, I hope you saw the PS I scribbled on the back of my last letter, the one above the map. In the middle of writing you, I was unsure exactly where I wanted to land next. I know that my letters are less frequent, but it only means that I'm trying to make more significant strides in getting to Seattle. These are proof that I'm getting closer. At the writing of this letter, I'm at Hull Lake, Utah. I made sure to mark it on the small map I drew for you. At the rate I've been going, I'm only about a week away from reaching you. Last night at the reservoir, I had a dream about you. We were back home, sitting on the couch and laughing over something you said. I can't remember much. I'm now beginning to wonder if it was a dream or a memory to reassure me that I was going to reach you soon. Even in my sleep, my thoughts are of you. Maybe you're trying to communicate with me? That's a nice thought. While we were still in Colorado, Cash and I spent some time trying to hunt. Since I'm trying to spend more time on the road, I wanted to cook as much food as possible. Cash was alert and signaled me on several occasions when there were straggling infected nearby. I took the liberty of dispatching them. They won't be trouble for anyone else who decides to stop there. I'm only doing what I would want others to do for me. I took down a small doe just after sunrise on the day before we left. She was at the water's edge drinking, and I didn't waste the opportunity. I processed it, and with the help of multiple fire pits and a few heavy-duty tarps, I began the smoking process. The next morning, I spent a couple of hours smoking some fish. Cash was so excited to get smoked fish. You would have thought I handed him a whole buffet. After breakfast, we packed up and left. I continued down Highway 24, then took I-70. There were a few ways to get here, but I attempted to choose the path of least resistance. It had fewer large cities and much more wooded areas. One route would have taken me straight through Denver, which was dangerous. The odds of finding a massive horde of infected were slim, and the roads would likely be clearer. I ended up only having to move a few cars out of my way, but nothing treacherous. At night, we would park in the woods or behind large trucks and remain hidden in case those men came down the road looking for me. Overall, the first leg of the trip was peaceful. I'm glad we stocked up on canned goods and smoked meat because that meant fewer stops to scavenge. I know more people than just me are trying to survive or find loved ones. All I can hope is that they think ahead, stay one step ahead of the game. We need as many uninfected people as we can get. Eventually, I needed to make a stop. I waited until I got on Highway 191 so I could be off the interstate. By then, the van was running on fumes and I needed to fill up. There was a dinky gas station just opposite an intersection, and I turned in there. A black truck was still parked next to the gas pump. Luckily, it was not a diesel truck, so I could siphon the gas. There was also an empty cooler left in the bed of the truck, and I grabbed it. Just as I finished siphoning out the last few drops, I heard an engine rumbling from somewhere down the road. I felt my skin crawl at the thought of those men still trailing behind me. What was I to do? By the time I removed the siphon, secured the top of the can, tucked them away in the van, and got ready to leave, the car would be on me. I knew they had weapons, and I stood hardly a chance, even with my 9mm and shotgun. It was like being caught with my pants down. Still, I had to escape. I was not about to be cornered at the gas station. I made quick work of the siphon and climbed into the front seat. Cash was on edge. I think he knew something was wrong. Just as I looked out the window and saw the car, I hit the gas. The wheels spun before we took off. It's a wonder my tires are still holding out after all we've been through. We got to the intersection, and I took a sharp left to get back on the highway. There was no slowing down. The van struggled to outrun the smaller car during the previous run-in, and this time was no better. Plus, the boat trailer was literally bouncing off the road with each bump. Ping, ping, they were shooting at my van again. If they shot any of my tires, I was done. I'd taken to doing a serpentine maneuver, boat and all, to make it difficult to aim. I don't know what prompted it. Maybe it was my adrenaline, or perhaps your courage channeling through me. But in a last-minute boost of bravery, I decided I would try to scare those thugs off for good. In my side view mirror, I could see the car coming up alongside the van. Without any hesitation, I took the gun from the glove compartment. It already had bullets in the chamber, and I turned off the safety. At that point, I didn't care what I hit, so long as it was a close call. Maybe, I thought, that would be enough to make them reconsider following me. The car's window was then parallel with mine, and it was partway down. It was the shorter one, the man with the tattoos. I could see the tiger on his shoulder. Just as he put the barrel through the window, I used my free hand to point mine at their car. He shouted something at his companion, the tall one, before they could swerve out of range. I pulled the trigger. I shot 2 or 3 times. I still can't remember exactly how many times I fired. My only thought at the time was escaping. Either way, it did the trick. The car swerved off to the left and abandoned the chase. Looking through my mirror, I watched the car come to a complete stop. The driver got out and sprinted around to the passenger side. By the time he opened the car door, I was going around a curve, and they were quickly out of sight. I had no intention of slowing down. My curiosity was not strong enough to keep me vulnerable. I veered off to the left to take Highway 6, then to Highway 89. There was a town named Orvo, and just behind it was Utah Lake. It wasn't my destination, but the area made for an excellent place to hunker down after the altercation I had with those men. The sun was still up, but I found that I liked taking the time to settle in for the night instead of pulling over to the side of the road right at sunset. I took the exit towards the lake and rolled off into some thick trees to shroud the van and the boat. Those guys were gone for the moment, but I was not sure if they would be back. I don't want to get complacent with them or the infected. Our early stop gave Cash a chance to wander around outside. Once we checked the area and made sure it was safe, he had an opportunity to stretch his legs and even get in a few rounds of fetch. We also practiced a few tricks using chunks of rabbit meat for treats. I wanted to see what he knew. So far, he's good at lay down, paw shake, stay, and roll over. That was impressive. To some people, those might be basic commands, but it was neat to watch him do them. He's a really great dog. I'm glad we get to add him to our family, and I can't wait for you to meet him. I used that cooler I found to store some of our meats. As much as I wanted ice, we didn't have any. The meat is at least smoked, so we don't have to worry about any spoilage. Ice water would be great though. Also, it gave me a small table to eat on while we're inside the van. When I'm on the road, I also avoid starting any fires. Unless we've made our final big stop or I'm cooking, I eat everything at room temperature. The next morning, I continued to the lake. As much as I was tempted to fish, it provides food, but it's also relaxing. There were only a few hours in between there and here, so I decided to wait. I knew I wouldn't have to make any stops along the way. Fishing would come eventually. This route took me through Salt Lake City. It's not nearly as large as Denver, so I felt a little safer going this way than the alternative. Still, I was on edge when we began to make our way through the city. The infected were milling about slowly, dragging their feet, and making those terrible sounds. It was nothing compared to nightfall, but it was disgusting all the same. I stayed the course and tried to get out of there as soon as possible. Then they appeared. Much like the one I saw on the interstate a couple of weeks ago, a horde was coming towards me. I didn't want to draw their attention. Pulling over, I parked parallel between 2 cars and watched as the lot of them slowly wandered by the van. Their bodies bumped up against it, making it shake. Cash started softly growling, but I patted him on the head to reassure him we were all right. About a half an hour of sitting quietly in the cargo area with Cash, I heard a cry. It was undoubtedly human. I climbed into the front seat and looked outside to locate the direction of the sound. Upon seeing the woman on the side of the street, I felt my heart stop. She was alone and terrified, but I couldn't get out of my van. She continued to call out for help, but we were surrounded. My heart broke for her. I was sickened to how I could not assist her without getting myself killed. If it had been even remotely possible that I could have been successful in helping her, I would have. It seems, each day, I now have to make life or death decisions. Those are hard decisions to make on their own, but much harder when someone else's life hangs in the balance. When no one else answered her call for help, she ran down that road. With their slow pace, we didn't see an end to their shamble until closer to evening. I decided to stay the night in that same spot. I was terrified to stay in a city at night, but I had no choice. The next morning, I drove down the side street to try and find that woman. No luck. I can only hope she hid in one of those apartment complexes until she figured out what her next move was. I'm glad I have Cash as my companion. It would make this trip far more unbearable if I had to travel alone without provisions or useful skills. I wonder if she'll make it. Since I came up empty in the search, we left for Salt Lake City and came here to Hall Lake. It was about an hour's drive, so Cash and I had a chance to find a proper place to settle for a few days. As much as I want to rush to Seattle, I must be realistic. With the nighttime being full of undead monsters and the daytime bringing dangerous humans, I can't take too many risks. However, the last leg of the trip is bringing me straight to you. I'm going to stay on the road with no major stops. I can be in Seattle next week. I will gather and maintain my food, so my only stops will be for gas and leg breaks. All I ask is that you keep sending your dreams to me. They bring such peace. I sleep better at night, knowing I will soon see your beautiful face. Keep holding on. Next week will be over quickly, and I'll be with you again. I love you. From the wasteland, Dalton.